Good morning. I'm Regina Gorham. I'm the collections manager here at the Kalamazoo Valley Museum, and we're going to take a look in our fourth floor collection storage today. I get to go here quite a bit. It's a big part of my job and a big space that we used often, and but not everybody gets to, so we're going to show you a little bit of what I get to see all the time. Ready?
Go.
All right, welcome. It's a little bit brighter in here, but the lights aren't on all the time. We've got a lot of stuff up here that we want to make sure stays safe, so it gets to sleep in the dark a lot. What you guys are seeing is the first kind of look in the museum, or in the collection storage up here. You probably can see a lot of boxes. Some of them are full, some of them are not. We do have the bulk of our extra supplies up here, so lots of our acid-free boxes, lots of our mylar and other materials that we use all the time. If you look across the room, you can see more of those boxes. You can also see some of our mannequins and other dress forms that we use for exhibits. We do have some things pulled out right now that are going to be for future exhibits. We have some of the dresses that you can see back here are going to be for an exhibit that's going to be coming up actually this October. It's going to be about dance and dancing and dance bands in Kalamazoo in the area. So we kind of pulled some outfit ideas that we have. We have other ones that we have in mind. We just haven't pulled them out yet. We also have up in this kind of front area some more dresses actually that we have that we're hoping to use for the exhibit, including one of our favorites, which is this lovely 1950s tulle number. It's got a great tulle wrap that goes along with it, and a really recognizable neckline for us now, even the nice little sweetheart neckline. But we, Sarah Humes, who's our registrar here, and I kind of fell in love with this when we were looking for clothing choices. I like purple, so that was part of the choice, and then we really just enjoyed how very modern it looked even for the time period, because we know it's from the 50s. But I probably wouldn't wear it now. It's a little too much tulle for me. But I think it's a really cool dress. I think a lot of people enjoy seeing it out of the box. We've also got over here, it looks probably not all that exciting. Some people don't find sinks exciting, but these are some things that we just got in on loan from the Gilmore Car Museum. We're working with them on an exhibit that'll be upcoming in the next month or so. We're going to put it up. It'll be on Checker Cab and the Checker Cab company that was here in Kalamazoo. And the fact that they made a lot more things than just cabs. The sinks and some of the other things that are shown here are the things that they made. This is actually part of their World War II contract that they made a bomb release, so it held bombs. And that was one of the contracts that they got during World War II. They also made sinks over time, and eventually at the end of the company's kind of life, this was post 1982 when they stopped making cabs, they were making tailgates, doors, frames for Chevy and a lot of other car companies. So they were still producing parts and still functioning as a factory until 2009. So that'll be some things that we'll be putting up and figuring out how to mount in the next few weeks actually. That exhibit will be opening up in April. But we have lots of stuff up here, so maybe we should go down and look around the corner a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. So everything is a work in progress. So you can see a lot of spaces that are works in progress. We also have additional storage on the what you'll see on the right-hand side is a lot of our furniture, trunks, and tables, some large sewing mechanism, looms, things like that. On the other side, we have our lovely mobile storage, which we're big fans of, because it's not only compact, it also helps us keep the dust off of things. So since all the shelves are closed, it kind of helps us with our upkeep and maintenance of things, because we don't have to worry about all of our clothing or all of our hats like we have out here getting completely crazy dusty, because I, of course, don't have a lot of time to spend vacuuming with a screen over all of our textiles. But we have a lot of great examples of hats from different time periods. You can see the ostrich feathers, which would have come into vogue after the hat fad killed most of the terns and other birds with pretty feathers on the coast, which brought about the Audubon Society. Ostrich feathers, of course, you can pluck them without killing the bird, so those feathers and chicken feathers and those sorts of things became the popular hat accessory after killing off a lot of birds, basically. This is where we keep some of our textile collection. We have a lot of the clothing hanging. Clothes like to be hung, kind of like we do in our closet now. So we have clothing that is on padded hangers, so they're nice and aren't getting any creases or the little triangles that you get in your shoulders sometimes if you hang a sweater on a hanger that you shouldn't. We also are lucky in this shelving, this section at least, to have a nice collection of shoes and men's hats, military sort of hats and shoes, and we've got our women's shoes. We also have some other accessories down here that are kind of personal items. We've got some shaving implements, so leather strops, and from the really ornate to the very simple, we have some razors, shaving mugs, shaving cups, and some Rhodes razor blades. Those were made by a J.B. Rhodes, who was a local guy. So we really like to focus on Kalamazoo and the surrounding area if we can. So not all of these things are necessarily from Kalamazoo, but a lot of them were used by people in Kalamazoo and were purchased in Kalamazoo. So we really like to keep things that are a good representation of the people who lived here in the town, in the community, and what they were buying. It's great to know what they were able to purchase, why they were purchasing it, and we can kind of track trends that way, which is always fun to do. It's a great way to go down a nice little rabbit hole if you're trying to do some research on someone, which I appreciate rabbit holes, so I will go down them gladly. Did you want to go down?
Well, we should go down your favorite aisle.
My favorite aisle? Okay. Every aisle is my favorite aisle, technically, because they kind of have to be. I get to take care of all the aisles. But there is an aisle when I first came here, it held some unique things for me, things that I have not really had to take care of before, but I'm now lucky enough to be able to take care of them. Early on in the museum, there was a lot of collecting of natural history items. So some down here you can see, as the shelves open, you can see a lot of shells, corals, and those sorts of things. Those are early collecting things. These are really, truly the things that made up the very first collection that was donated to the museum in 1881 by Horace Peck. And we still keep them because they represent the very start of the museum. But what Elizabeth is very kindly referring to are the Mastodon Bones. And these are far and away the oldest things that I've ever had to take care of. They're about minus 10,000 BCE, so they are quite old. They were found here in Kalamazoo on Patterson Street, and I was very fascinated with them, so I started doing some research on them. A lot of what you're seeing now are parts of the vertebrae of the mastodon. So you can see this is a vertebrae piece. They're massive, and it was really cool to be able to kind of come here and hang out with the mastodon. And
You want to tell the story?
huh?
You want to tell the Mastodon story?
I could tell them the Mastodon story. They were digging a sewer here in Kalamazoo on Patterson Street, and they were digging and came across these bones in 1927. So they stopped digging, and they basically said, well, why don't you kind of keep digging, see what you can find, and we'll pause the sewer work for now. And so they did that, and these are the bones that they pulled out. They ran out of money, so there could be more mastodon still under there, probably under some sewer at this point, because they did continue putting in the sewer lines. But that is how we were given these bones. Were from those workers. So yeah, there still could be more mastodon out there. We've got a lot of his spine though. Let's see. Why don't we go down the toys? Because the toys are just fun. Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh, ah, oh. Very exciting. So it's kind of a toys and recreation aisle. So you'll see some sporting equipment. We have boxes that have ice skates. We have bats. Some are from local teams. Sutherland Paper Company had a baseball team that was very successful. So we have some baseball gear from them. And some of my favorite stuff and a lot of people's favorite stuff are, of course, the toys, because we see different versions of what we played with in all of these toys. So we have, you can see between these two shelves, basically, the slow kind of advancement of what we would play with as kitchen technology. I played with an Easy Bake Oven that looked like a little bit or newer version of this. But back when we were during the late 1880s, early 1900s, a lot of people were cooking on cast iron stoves. So this is what kids were playing with. They were cast iron stoves because that looked like what their families were using for stoves. Now, I will fully admit that this doesn't really look like a stove from now, and neither did my Easy Bake Oven. It looked a little bit more like a microwave, but that's because I'm a child of the 80s, and that's when we had microwaves were all the big fad. You can see lots of things. You may recognize some of these as being a little bit newer, and that's because we collect things that were produced by local companies, and these were products that were made by Beach Products, which was a local company here in Kalamazoo. But you can also see lots of cars, different sorts of tin and aluminum metal toys that would be a little bit older, and then really simple toys like this. To see, because again we collect things that are relating to the community. So the way we grew up is all a part of that, and the way different people grew up is all a part of that too. We also have down here some representations of not really recreation, these are more business things. We have slates that were used by kids in school. So again, a little bit further back from when all of our lessons would have been written with chalk on chalkboards. And then we've got some typewriters and kind of that representation of the advance in technology. And we also have different monitors and radios that show different time periods. So kind of every aisle is a mix of things that can represent a different era in Kalamazoo's history. Go
Document
ahead.
aisle? Document aisle?
Sure. I didn't know if there was.
Well,
We have somewhere around a little under 60,000 items in the collection, and probably close to 50% of them can be found down this aisle. It's not as glamorous as some of the other aisles, but it is one of my favorite ones, and it's one of the ones we use most often. We're very lucky to have a pretty big photograph collection. You can actually look at not only some of the photos, but some of our collection items in general. We have an online database that you guys can look at if you go to our website. It's the online collection. But the photos by far are some of the things that we use most. We get research questions about things that were in the area, what things used to look like, where things were. We can pull photos for exhibits. We have photos that we've pulled for the upcoming Checker Cab exhibit. We're looking through photos for the Let's Dance exhibit for the fall. We use our photo collection very, very frequently. We also have, down this aisle, beyond photos, we have some family collections, so papers, documents that it came from a specific family. We also have documents coming from different clubs in town. We have government records, we have post office records, we have diaries, which I am a fan of. I like the diaries. Those are some of my favorite. We also have scrapbooks, and really just about anything you can think of. We have boxes that pertain to particular businesses that were in the area, kind of overall just marketing materials from the city of Kalamazoo. They definitely had a very big marketing scheme, which is a great resource for us.
Whose diaries?
Whose diaries?
Like whose diaries? As we have a question.
Whose diaries? We have the diaries of Claire White, which are not up here right now in storage because we just took them off display, so they're downstairs kind of in a holding area. We have some diaries from Eliza Frazier, which were ones that I found recently. I found them really interesting because she writes extensively about what her life was like after her husband passed away at a very young age. She lived on with her family. I think they had 3 kids. 3 that were surviving at that time. And they lived on a farm and worked a farm. And she writes about what her life was like after losing him.
What year?
Oh, it's a good test. I haven't looked at these in a while. She would have been writing in the 1880s, around that time period, give or take 5 years or so. Because by around the 1900 census, she is living with her father-in-law's family on their farm. So we can assume that they had to sell the farm that she was working with her husband before he passed, and kind of had to move in with her family members so that they could survive, basically. But kind of, she talks about her daily life a lot, and that is what is very interesting and something that we won't find in newspapers. This sort of kind of she's a very normal, average person living on a farm, working on a farm. So those are the stories that don't necessarily show up in a newspaper, even in an obituary. They aren't going to talk about her feelings, They're just going to say that she lived on a farm and that she died and she was, so many years old. So I know we have more diaries than that, but I will fully admit that I can't think of any off the top of my head, because those are the 2 collections that I have worked with the most so far since I've been here. But beyond that, really this aisle is probably one that I spend the most time down.
Okay, the question is, does the public get to read the diaries?
Claire White's diaries have been partly transcribed, so those are actually online, so you can read them. You can look at our museum's website for the blog, and those are on there for Claire White's blog. We are hoping to get that project started again. For Claire's diaries, a lot of them are very fragile, so we really can't have them handled very much at all. So when we look at transcribing them, we have to look at it very seriously and only have a professional museum person or somebody that we've trained as an intern at a high level to be handling those sorts of things so that we can keep them forever. So we kind of, case by case, we do make research appointments. But it'll all depend on what sort of state the item is in. So that kind of goes for anything in the collection. We have to make sure that we're looking out for the object first and foremost. It's kind of what we do. So. Is that good?
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Oh, good. Yeah, we can look at the paintings.
Oh, somebody's ready to go to the website.
Oh, yeah. It's great. We add stuff all the time. It depends, of course, on how busy we are with exhibit stuff. We kind of get pushed behind. But we're working. We've got some volunteers and interns in that are working on our photo collection, actually. So hopefully we'll be able to get more stuff up there for you guys to see. But we do, thanks to some early donors, we do have quite a few paintings in the collection. A.M. Todd, who was the Mintkin here in Kalamazoo, liked to travel, and he also liked to collect fine art. So we have quite a bit of fine art from him, and if you do come to the museum, there are some paintings from A.M. Todd hanging up in the little gallery space that we call the Todd Gallery. But he really liked to spend money on art and gave the bulk of his art to the museum in the 20s. Did you want to go
Yeah, we should go down.
down a little bit? Can you get around this painting?
Not that wide.
No, I beyond the art from A.M. Todd, we also have other things. Some are paintings that were done by local artists. Some are paintings of local buildings. Some are paintings of early Kalamazoo residents. Not necessarily all pioneers, but more often than not, they are going to be very early residents to the area. And some of the things that they had. Or representations of early farms in the area. That's Spring Valley Farm. Not in Kalamazoo proper, but nearby.
You want to explain these?
Sure, I will happily explain those.
Because that's what we're getting a question for.
Oh, we're getting a question for what the heck are these weird looking round things? A lot of the time, if we get into the collection a large flag, large quilt, large rug, any large textile, it's going to be very, very expensive and very difficult to safely store it in a box. I can't imagine putting a big rug in a box and then expecting myself to be able to lift it later. It's just not going to work. So many times for the safety of not only me and my back, but more so for the textile item itself, it's much easier and safer to roll the textile. So these are all rolled textiles, quilts, rugs, flags. What we do is have an acid-free tube at the center, so long tube. And then we interleaf everything with acid-free tissue paper, roll the item across, and then top it off with muslin, and then tie it off and put our tags on the outside. So we actually know what's in here without having to unroll it and possibly damage the textile, especially with flags and other really the thinner textile garments. It's kind of dangerous to actually handle them frequently. So anything that we can do to kind of minimize what we're doing, the unrolling, is kind of why these are over here like that. So they look a little weird. I didn't even think about it, but I'm very used to them being here. But that's why we do it this way. It also keeps creases out of them, which you would have a ton of creases if you tried to fold everything and stick it in a box. So we don't want to damage anything or add extra tear and wear lines to the item if we can. So that's why we roll them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I think that's all I've got.
Any questions from the world out there? Or anything you might want to see that we have? This has been great.
Yeah.
Very exciting, very interesting work.
Good.
Thank you.
Not a problem. And yeah, you can see more things. You know, when I'm at home asleep and can't show you fun things up here, you can look at the online collection and see things that weren't even shown today.
And our website is www.kalamazoomuseum.org.
It's true. That's right.
And if you're in the Kalamazoo area, we have free general admission and are open most every day.
Yep.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll hopefully do something like this in the future.
Yeah. Thank you all. Have a good day.